This is the Mr. Burns post-check-in video number 2. We started approximately at 4 p.m. We started with announcements, a check-in, and then we went through a recap of check-in number 1, which was, again, about language and creative risks. Then our director led us through an activity where we came in with that story of our risk, and instead of sharing it vocally or telling the story, we drew a picture. This is what I drew. And then we talked about some solutions or some ways to go about taking risks in a rehearsal room, as we will in this production. One thing that a lot of people had in high school or in productions before this production was you had to worry about asking for permission, or else it wasn't going to be correct, it felt like. Having some guidelines to work within, some specificity to work around, is going to help each and every single actor on the floor when making risks and making choices. So it's this idea of choice within structure. Like I said, guidelines, specificity, it's a focused exploration. So you're not just going off in random directions. You have a place that you're going to. Yes, there's an endpoint, but there are many different ways to get there, and that's where the creativity and the exploration comes from. That you don't stray too far from the path to the destination. Another way to say that is having a direction of risk. Another thing we talked about is push, that word, being able to be pushed in a rehearsal room, but not too far. This is where I bring it back to the word breakthrough. In order to have a breakthrough in a rehearsal room, that word break, what are you breaking through? You know, and that gets a little dicey. Is it a healthy breakthrough? Is it what are you breaking? And is there another way to have that kind of exploration or epiphany without breaking something? If there's a growth of it or a rebirth, not necessarily a breaking. Our director at this point gave us a disclaimer saying nothing you say will be used against you in rehearsal. Our director did include the fact that there will be intimacy training for people who get intimate on stage, and there will be fight training for people who have physical contact and combat on the stage. We moved on to some announcements after this discussion and activity, which were character breakdowns. And this mainly had to do with costumes, because some characters have up to 6 costumes. And I wrote down my order. It goes Gibson in Act 1, Gibson in Act 2, Ricky Martin, Sideshow Bob, Chief Wiggum, and then Homer Simpson in the last act. After everyone got their character costume breakdowns, we moved to a read-through of Act 1. One quote I wrote down was, "Every story ends on a dark and raging river." This is at the very beginning of the script, and I think it's very informing of the piece, and I think it'll help us construct the production as the process goes on. Now, we had some difference in scripts from the ones that are printed out and the ones that are on the Google Drive, because The script has evolved over time since its original production, and we are currently in contact with Anne Washburn and using the latest one. So we didn't finish Act 1. We just stopped right after my entrance. Then we talked about some initial ideas of the show, what popped to us originally. Some things that stood out were the language, the vernacular. All of it is very chosen language, and it seems almost seems slice of life-esque. There's a lot of stuttering and repeating of words, and it's a lot like real life vernacular. At the end of this, we tied it all back to the risks. The risks that we're going to take for this production require something out of us to fit in that language and these characters, as far as Act 1 going up to my entrance is. After reading Act 1 and doing all of these activities, we did a checkout. It was announced to us that we will have our scripts printed out by next time, and we will have our costume drafts by next time, and we got out right at 5 o'clock.